Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we're going to take a look at our FanDuel breakdown. Alright, so first of all, this spreadsheet is available in the description below, so feel free to hit that button to come into the spreadsheet. I try to keep it updated as we get injury news and stuff like that. So what I do on this sheet is I basically put the price of each player and how much that they have to score to get 5x and 6x on both DraftKings and FanDuel, as you can see here. But we're going to be talking about FanDuel in this particular video. So before I get started, can you please smash that like and subscribe button? I really do appreciate it. Also, you'll notice that there are some columns here that I actually fill in more data. Once we get about 10 games into the season, I put the data for how many times in the last 10 games that a player has hit these numbers on this for that particular slate based on the price of that day. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into this particular slate. Before I do that, though, I want to shout out the Patreon and the Discord members. Be sure to check those things out. Patreon, you can pay whatever you want. On FanDuel, you can also just do like a one-time thing if you want a Patreon. On FanDuel, on Discord, it's free, and you can come in there. We have a lot of guys in there. They're talking about stuff. And yesterday we got a pretty good win here. I placed 39th in the $5 GPP, so I've been trying to do that every day. As you can see, I've been cashing in 4 out of the 5 days so far for FanDuel. Same as DraftKings, actually. So my lineups are usually pretty similar, but some days are a little bit different. They're definitely been different the last couple days, but still cashing on both. With that said, let's get into the players that we like today. So at point guard, my top options here are going to be D'Angelo Russell for the Minnesota Timberwolves. His price point is just too cheap, a little bit over here. He's got a nice plus matchup against the Thunder. He's been a little up and down so far, but he should play plenty of minutes, and he has a really good floor. Then we're gonna look at Donovan Mitchell here for the Cavs. His price is pretty fair today. He has 30 plus minutes, and he should have 50-point upside here in this matchup against the Wizards, who don't have anybody that can guard him, and he's gonna have to play a full complement of minutes with Garland out, and Garland is definitely out for the foreseeable future, so he's gonna get a lot of play here. Then we're gonna look at Josh Giddey for the Thunder. His price point is pretty fair here. Not my favorite play, but he's cheaper here on FanDuel than on DraftKings. He should get plenty of minutes and have some opportunity here. I usually don't love to use the Thunder players, but they do have a nice matchup here against the Timberwolves. And so some of the guys, the only guy I usually typically use is Shea Alexander. And then Trey Mann also here. He looks pretty solid today at $4,000. He's going to get about 25 or so minutes here, and he should be able to get 5 times value. Pretty good on this particular slate. He's definitely not very useful on DraftKings, or he's much more expensive. And then Mike Conley for the Jazz. He's got some upside here in this matchup due to his price, and it's a pretty decent matchup from the guard position. Him and CJ McCollum will probably go back and forth a lot, like trying to hit shots. And so those are my two. He's my favorite player on the Jazz when it comes to the guard position. For shooting guards, Karis LeVert, he looks really solid here for the Cavaliers as well. His price point is actually a lot better here on on FanDuel than DraftKings, and so I think he's in a pretty good spot. Lou Dort for the Thunder. He's another guy that's a little bit underpriced for his potential production in this game. He has this overall plus matchup in general. For the Phoenix Suns, Devin Booker looks like he's a pretty solid play today at $8,300. He's a lot cheaper over here on FanDuel, and he's got more upside as a result. It is a tough matchup against the Clippers, but I think he's pretty much matchup proof, and he's proven that so far this season. And then finally, Shea Alexander for the Thunder. He's in a great spot here. Obviously, his price is pretty high, so he's not my favorite play, but he's still a pretty solid option on this particular slate. As for small forwards, I have a couple guys here to list. I'm only going to list the guys I haven't listed already because a lot of guys can play multiple positions. But Anthony Edwards is a top option here for the Timberwolves. His price point is still pretty fair for his potential production in this one. His first game against the Thunder, he didn't do all that great, but in the last game, he did pretty good, and I look for him to continue that. And then for the Sacramento Kings, Keegan Murray is going to get quite a few minutes in this one, I think, and his price point will probably rise as the season progresses. So get him while he's cheap. Another guy you could also take a look at is Kevin Huerter. His price point is still pretty cheap, and he's going to get up, but he is very dependent on three-point shooting. As for power forwards and centers, we basically have 4 or 5 guys, actually 6 guys to take a look at here. First being Kelly Olynyk for the Jazz. His price is just a little bit too cheap here on FanDuel, and I think he's in a great spot. Then we're going to look at Dominus Sabonis. Now his price point is very similar to he is on DraftKings, but he actually has a little bit more upside here on FanDuel with this matchup, and so I do think he's a great option on this particular slate. Then we're going to look at Kevin Love for the Cavaliers. He's a little bit too cheap over here. You could also take a look at Evan Mobley, but I think Kevin Love's price is almost a little bit too cheap, and he's going to get 20 to 25 minutes, and he's definitely capable of 5xing on this particular slate with the way this is set up. As for Draymond Green, he's another guy I really like here. Now, Draymond Green, the issue with him is that he could potentially be on a minutes limit, so keep an eye out for Steve Kerr to tell us about that. You can actually say the same thing for Jordan Poole, because if Klay Thompson is still on a minutes limit, then Jordan Poole would have some upside, but he's a little bit more expensive over here on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. Excuse me. Then I got two more guys that are centers. DeAndre Ayton at $7,000, just too cheap overall for his potential production in this game. He's the same price as Ivica Zubac, and Zubac is really not a good deal at that price point, whereas Ayton is much safer and has a high floor and a pretty good ceiling too. And then finally, Walker Kessler. He's just too cheap over here on FanDuel. I'm a little surprised he's that inexpensive. He should get a decent chunk of minutes, and he should be able to give you a good 5x or 6x performance, especially in this nice plus matchup for himself. The Pelicans do have some guys that can do well inside, but honestly, I think Kessler is just way too cheap for this potential production. And then finally, Jonas Valanciunas for the Pelicans. Now, his price point is coming up, so you do have to factor that in, but he's been absolutely dominant so far. And while Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler and Kelly Olynyk are going to go up against him, he's pretty much matchup proof at this point until he shows us otherwise. He's a guy that you're going to want to lock in there. Against the Jazz the other day, Rudy Gobert absolutely dominated and had a massive amount of rebounds, and so I look for a guy like Valanciunas to be able to do that again. So with that said, thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you want to access this spreadsheet, the link is in the description below. You can comment on this spreadsheet as well. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.